Let
Hello.
welcome to Movie Boners, everyone.
Ooh. Hi.
What beer are you drinking today?
A surprise. Ooh. It's really good. It is becoming harder and harder to find beers that are relatable to the episode. Are you having that problem too?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
But
Yes.
today was not one of those days. I thought it was, and then I came across a little gem that I was like, that's perfect. All right. So
Okay.
it's from Little Toad Creek Brewery out in New Mexico. And I think this fits our episode real well, specifically, probably the most well-known, popular of this franchise. But I'm drinking Grumpy Old Troll IPA. Hey, look at that. That's perfect. And it's really fucking good.
Yeah, that'll work.
It works great,
That's awesome.
Jake.
What is it? What is the style?
It's an IPA.
Okay, you probably said that. Mine, I stretched to see if I could get one that's close to the theme, and I think I did okay. So mine is from the Woods Boss Brewing Company in Denver, Colorado, and it's called "Do You Need Assistance?" And I thought it worked because our hero tends to help people out a lot, whether they want it or not. And if you zoom in, there's a little man standing behind a bear in the field, and on the back of the can, it says, "Hey, bear fucker, do you need assistance? We've got you covered." And not that I think that Ernest would ever intentionally start romantic relations with a wild animal, but he is notoriously not very bright. And so that's kind of related to the theme, you know?
You were doing
Maybe.
You were doing fine with the like, do you need assistance? Our hero tends to help people whether they want it or not. I was like, perfect, great. And then you followed that with, hey, bear fucker. Like
Okay, mostly I got it because I thought it was funny.
I mean, that is pretty funny.
It's also so it's an ESB, which I don't know if I've ever had before. I had to Google what that even was. It stands for extra special bitter, and it's basically an English style pale ale.
Okay.
And it's very good. So I recommend
we'll go
it.
us picking very good beers today. At this juncture in time.
Before we go any further at this juncture in time, I want to let you know, listeners, that we are starting a contest. I warned you a little bit last week, and it's a very exciting time. So for all of December, until the end of the year, we're running a contest that we want to give away free movies to you. And so you can go to Instagram for all of the rules. If you don't have Instagram, I still want to support that because I think that's noble. So you can also go to movieboners.com and I'll have the rules there as well. There's a bunch of different things that you can do to earn tickets, basically, and we'll do a drawing at the end of the year to give away basically 6 months of Cinemark Movie Club with like 6 free movie tickets and 20% off of concessions and a bunch of cool stuff. So go to Instagram, go to movieboners.com and get all the details. We'll let you know next episode as well because it will be a very fun time.
Yes.
I want to say thank you at the end of the year.
Very excited for it.
Next order of business, the movie draft is still a thing that we do. And it's doing all right. It's still the same. You're still winning by 0.05 of a point in the IMDb average. Not a ton has changed over the last couple of weeks. Still neck and neck.
Kind of lackluster.
We've still got Wonka and Aquaman still to come for you, and Color Purple still to come for me. There's still a chance that if Wonka and Aquaman are mediocre, below average for you, less than a 6.4, and Color Purple is amazing, I think I could still win, but it's going to be very tight.
Yeah.
One of the keys is that freaking Wish is potentially the worst Disney movie ever made.
Yeah.
Ironically.
My daughter went and saw it, and I was like, "Oh, was it cute? Was it fun?" She goes, "That movie sucks, Dad." It's like, "Oh, dang." She was like, "It's kind of
Wow.
cool how they connect the Disney films together." And I was like, "All right. I mean, that's
Mhm.
a lot of stories to connect." She goes, "Yep, the movie sucked." And I was like, "Oh my god." She goes, "But my brother liked it." And I was like, "Well, he's 4, so."
He likes anything with flashing lights.
But yeah, to hear my daughter just flat out say it sucked, I was like, well, that doesn't bode well for me in the draft. But that's okay.
No,
Yeah.
no. Um, yeah, it's also pretty funny that I think it was last episode you said a joke, but it's coming true now. You said, "What if the Marvels tanks worse than the
Yep.
Flash?" And that is actually happening. It's still only at 188 million. The Flash at least made 268 million, so that's not good for you. And the only reason I'm holding on at this moment.
Oh, so you have a lot to be thankful for when it comes to the Marvels, huh? I almost
I do.
feel,
I put it
Jake,
on my
I
little
almost
Thanksgiving
feel
list.
like you should go see it in the theater. Buy a ticket to the Marvels in the theater to show your
Mhm.
gratitude. Yes.
Please, anybody go see this movie. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna
Nah,
happen.
I don't blame you.
Um,
You.
and on the topic of movies that apparently are huge that we didn't draft, have you heard of Godzilla Minus One?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I didn't
Have you
hear
not?
about it. Have I had no clue it was even
Oh
a
my god,
thing
this
that was
thing's
coming
like,
out until like the day it came out, and people were freaking out about how great it was. I was like,
yeah.
"What is this? Is this a show? Is this a comic book? I don't know what you're even talking
No,
about."
it's another Japanese like OG Godzilla. Just
Okay.
bigger, angrier, and yeah, very, very angry.
It sounds amazing. Everybody is saying that it's amazing, and so I'm pretty hyped about it now, all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
I'm excited for it. I may or may not see it this coming weekend. It just kind of depends on how things work out, but I would definitely like to go see it. I think what's
Mhm.
really funny to me, I saw, I think it was just a meme, but it was one of those like, it's funny because it's true and painful because it's true. So it's a still from Godzilla Minus One of Godzilla swimming through the ocean with his mouth open and the water's like running through his teeth and over his tongue. And it's just that still frame, and the caption is Godzilla Minus One has better CGI than the Flash, and it's on a lower budget. And it's very true. If
I
you
believe
look
it.
at like a side by side, just pick any CGI, it's like the detail in the water on how it's like
Mhm.
going around the teeth and his tongue and through his mouth looks so much better than the Flash, like standing still as time. Oh, you haven't watched it, so you don't even know how bad the CGI is yet.
No,
Um,
I've heard rumors, but I don't know for sure.
Dude, I'm telling you, the opening scene with the babies is just like, what the fuck is happening right now?
I have seen that on the internet, and I thought it was a joke for the longest time.
But I am curious about Godzilla Minus One. I'm definitely curious about it.
Mhm. I had a similar feeling. We're gonna move on in a second, but I thought just saw the trailer for Furiosa, the new George Miller
Yeah.
movie, the prequel, and it looks dope as hell, but I also had, like, questionable vibes about the CGI at some points. I didn't know if
Hmm.
it was, like, CGI weirdness or AI stuff, or it felt off a little bit, but maybe it's just unfinished. Is it possible?
Yeah, are you talking like some of the fire around Furiosa?
Yeah.
There's like a shot in the trailer. I had the same vibe. I was excited for the trailer. I didn't even realize it was Anna
Hmm.
Taylor Johnson.
Joy.
Joy,
Joy.
thank you. Uh, like kudos to her. She's played so
Mhm.
many roles where she's so like clean cut and very like proper and beautiful. Didn't even recognize her at all. I
Yeah.
was holy shit. But I hope it's
Yeah. It
not
looks
weird
pretty cool.
CGI. That'd be kind of a bummer to go from Fury Road, which was like primarily practical
Mhm.
shots and effects,
Yeah.
to CGI heavy. That might uh, eh. But we digress. We'll find out.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. It's a ways off still. What new stuff have you seen lately?
Well, I actually have watched a handful.
Good.
Yay. All right.
And there was much rejoicing.
Yay. So, anyways, uh, around Thanksgiving time, I was trying to figure out like, oh, I feel like I want to watch something else that's Thanksgiving that I haven't seen. There's not very much in terms of
Hmm.
Thanksgiving movies. Uh, but I did find one that I was like, well, I've never seen this. I like the director. I like the cast. This should be interesting. So I watched a movie from the '90s called Home for the Holidays. I had never seen it. It's
Is
directed
that
by Jodie
Jonathan
Foster.
Taylor Thomas?
No, um,
Oh.
it's directed by Jodie Foster, and it stars Holly Hunter, and it's got a very young Robert Downey Jr. It's about this woman who like her life kind of falls apart the day before she goes back home to visit her mom and dad for Thanksgiving, and her family is pretty dysfunctional. I honestly couldn't tell if I liked it or not. It was weird. It felt like it never knew if it was trying to be a comedy or a quirky drama or what. So I was like,
Hmm.
well, it is what it is. I didn't hate it, so I guess that's a plus. And then
Okay.
um I did go and see Next Goal Wins, the new Taika
Okay.
Waititi film. I
Yeah.
liked it. I liked it. It was funny. It was
Okay.
cute. Um, it's got a really good. It's one of those movies that has a great monologue in it that you're just like, there it is. That scene
Inspirational.
is that's where it brings it all together. Awesome. Very fun movie. There was some
Hmm.
stuff in it that I was like, man, they're really focusing on this, and I wonder if like just how much of this part of the film was actually part of the real story, like because they say right up front, hey, it's based on a true story, this happened, of course we're going to embellish a couple things, like that's right in the
Hmm.
beginning of the movie. So I was trying to
Yeah.
figure out what was embellished, um but then the post credits tell you like they answered all my questions that I was wondering about throughout the movie, and was like, oh, okay, so all right. But I liked it. I thought it was all
Nice.
right. I could see why some people are like super anti this movie, but whatever. I enjoyed it. It was
Hmm.
nice seeing Taika Waititi kind of get back to his lane,
Yeah.
getting away from Marvel. So
Right.
that was fun. And then I went and saw Napoleon.
Ooh. I'm interested
Yeah.
to hear what you say.
It's not bad. It's pretty cool. The battle scenes are really engaging. They're really interesting. It's pretty brutal. Uh, I think I think horses, like the animal horses, really
Yeah.
pissed
I've heard of
off
them.
Ridley Scott right before he started filming this movie, because you see
A
some
lot of them
horses
die.
die pretty brutally.
Fuck those
Like,
horses.
obviously, they're not real horses, PETA, and people freaking out thinking Ridley Scott's killing real horses. They're not real.
Yeah.
But it was like there was one shot where a horse dies that the whole theater was just kind of like, what? Why? Holy crap. Yeah. Um, it was. They focus, in my
I have to say.
opinion, way too much on Josephine. I was
Okay.
hoping to see a movie about Napoleon, the brute, this tyrant, this conqueror, like his
Mm-hmm.
mastermind when it came to how he was going to engage in warfare and all this. I was excited to see that aspect and to see Joaquin
Yeah.
Phoenix play that. Um, but it
Mm-hmm.
focuses more on Josephine and him being just a terrible fucking couple. Um, and then I couldn't. There were a couple parts. I'm sure you've heard this. I'm pretty sure the whole internet has heard this about Napoleon. There were moments I could not tell if they were supposed to be funny or not, but you were laughing at the dialogue or
Mm-hmm.
the scene or the tantrum that was being thrown. You couldn't help but laugh about it. And I said that
Yeah.
to a couple coworkers, and a bunch of them were like, "We have heard that about Napoleon, where no one can figure out, like, was this supposed to be funny? Because it kind of
Interesting.
was." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Joaquin Phoenix does a great job. I mean, the acting's great. He plays Napoleon as, think of a child raised in a home that they don't believe in the word no, and they give out
Yeah.
participation awards. You can at me all you
Okay.
want. That's the worst parenting ever. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense.
he is a little shit who just happens to be really smart at
Mm-hmm.
moments. But it was an all right movie. And then,
Okay.
if there are any music fans or specifically the band Godsmack, I watched the documentary called I Stand Alone. It's the Sully Erna story. It's his documentary about his life growing up and forming one of the biggest bands of all time. And that was pretty intense and interesting at moments. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
it's a story basically like, hey, even when you're giving up on your dreams, you should probably follow that itch to get back on that horse. So
Yeah.
as a fan, obviously I'm biased. I enjoyed it. So that was what I
That's
watched.
awesome.
What about you, Jake?
I love it. I've only watched two things, but they were series, so they've taken up a good amount of my time. I've watched the first 9 episodes. There's only one more episode left of Squid Game: The Challenge, which is the reality show competition
Yeah,
version of Squid
yeah.
Game. I really liked the real Squid Game. I still think about it all the time because it left such an impression. It's a really incredible show. I really didn't think that a reality show based on it would do very well or be very interesting
Hmm.
because once you have the stakes of the real show where you either win or you die, you literally die.
Right.
Um, then I was like, who cares? Like, none of this is real, and everybody knows, then it's not going to be a big deal. But surprisingly, it works really well. Like it was interesting how invested I got, and Christy, my wife, also, she felt the same way. She's like, I'm not interested in that, and then she got super into it. So I think it's
Okay.
good. I think it's very interesting. They have to be doing it on this exact same sets because the set design is phenomenal and exactly the same. And they also change things up. They add new games and throw people off and do things
Okay.
differently. So it's pretty clever in that way. It's funny though that a lot of the contestants will like start taking it super seriously and start like acting as if it's life or death and getting super dramatic about it. And as you're watching it, you're like, bro, you're just gonna go home. Like it's not a big deal.
Well, aren't they? They're
But I
playing for
guess
money, though, aren't they?
yeah, I guess in
Okay.
their perspective, it is kind of a big deal, life and death situation between winning $4.56 million and
Hmm.
nothing. That is life changing. So I get it. I get it. But
Okay.
yeah, so I'm interested to see how it ends. It's been interesting. And then the other thing I watched is not really new, but I still want to bring it up because it's amazing. We rewatched all of Midnight Mass and
Yes.
the Mike Flanagan other show. And honestly, this might be a hot take, but I feel like it might be better than Haunting on Hill House. Haunting in Hill House is amazing, but it's a lot more complicated. And I think that the simplicity and the linear story, and it just really lets you focus on the characters and their situations and their growth, and it benefits a lot from seeing it a second time, because the first time you don't really know what's going on until the very end. And so after seeing it a second time, you pick up on all of the foreshadowing and all of the meaning of that this actually has to this person. And so it's a phenomenal series. And so if you haven't seen Midnight Mass, definitely check it out. It's amazing. One of my favorites, I think.
Yeah, Midnight Mass is pretty incredible. I remember when they first released it. Obviously, being a Mike Flanagan fan, especially his Netflix adaptations that he's been doing, his little spooky series. Midnight Mass was a blast for me, especially with the whole like, here's what it all is, here's what it all has meant.
Yeah.
I still think it might be one of the best representations of that. I don't want to spoil too much in case someone has managed to stay off the internet and not watched it yet. I think it's one of the coolest representations or interpretations of that thing I think I've ever
And
seen.
it adds so much
so cool.
depth.
Love
Like,
Midnight Mass.
it has so much depth between that topic and then the people and it's a lot of faith-based stuff, and you can kind of understand if this is in the world, then with people, how these legends of the Bible and mythology through all human history and all this stuff kind of builds up. Is such a brilliant thing, but also, they use so many different layers. I think it's just brilliantly executed, brilliantly written, one of the best ever. So
very cool.
I love it a lot.
Well, you brought up
All right.
Midnight Mass as a like, hey, people, revisit this, and don't worry, Jake, the segues into the show ish.
Okay.
Ish. So my daughter and I this last weekend were trying to figure out what do we want to do, and they re-released Elf into the theater because it's been 20 years, so it's the 20th anniversary. Which, side note, holy fucking
How
shit!
did that happen?
It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so old. We're so old, Jake. But anyways, so we went and saw Elf, and I was like, not expecting it to be like full or that popular, because everyone can watch Elf at any time, especially at Christmas time. It's everywhere.
Right.
The theater was packed. Everyone was there dressed in their Christmas garb, and everyone, like families. There was like some old ladies sitting right next to my daughter, like old ladies. And it was just, I've talked about it, or you and I have both talked about it before, of just that theater experience. First off, watching Elf again on the big screen was like, holy crap, this movie is like 1,000 times more magical than I even give it credit for. But the experience alone of just hearing everyone still laughing at all the jokes, singing, there was a little bit of humming. I may or may not have also quoted a few lines directly at my daughter just to embarrass her, but she laughed about it. It was just such a cool experience, and just kind of revisiting that silly nostalgia was such a gem.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, I think it's still in the theater. Maybe it was just for that one weekend, but I know they're releasing a whole bunch of like Christmas classics over the following weekends coming up throughout this month. Go check them out. Like, there is definitely a different feel revisiting some of these on that big screen. So if your theater, wherever you're at, is showing some of these classic Christmas movies, I strongly suggest and recommend you go, because it's awesome. It's so good. It's so wonderful.
I think that's great.
And that
that
leads us into our little trip down nostalgia lane. So how long has it been since you have thought of or let alone rewatched any of these.
Well, it couldn't have been that long since I've thought about it because it's not anything. I have never forgotten about Ernest and his filmography, but
Mm-hmm.
some people probably have. I think that that's the fun thing about doing this episode. I think that we'll be posting stuff about it and posting the episode, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that." And you
Yeah.
get this nostalgia burst of member berries, and it's such a fun time. But it has been a really long time since I've watched any of them, and I had no idea if I would still think they're funny, if they'd hold up, or if it was just I was a dumb kid who thought that it was obnoxious when I was a little kid, and it annoyed my mom when I watched it, and so I just thought it
Right.
was great.
I I think that was one of the universal truths to the Ernest franchise was children thought it was hilarious. Dads probably thought it
Mhm.
was obnoxious and annoying, but still pretty funny because
Yeah.
it was that kind of humor. And every mother hated every moment of every film because it
Yeah.
was so obnoxious. Um, yeah,
It's
it
in the
had
same
been
humor vein as, like, Three Stooges, and I don't know a lot of ladies that like Three Stooges.
true. It's true. Yeah, it was I don't even I tried to remember like what age would I have been for the last time that I had watched Ernest. And dude, I
Mhm.
don't even know if I was 10 years old. I mean, the last one I actually remember watching was Scared Stupid. And that was like
Okay.
93 or 94, something like that, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Might even be earlier. That one may have been like 91 or 92.
Yeah,
It
Scared
turned out
Stupid was 91.
91.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was like 5 or 6 at that point then, and then had watched it. I know I had rewatched it like still at a young age, but haven't watched it since. Always like you and I will mention it now and again, or anytime you watch Toy Story and Slinky the dog comes on, it's instant like us kids of the
Mhm.
80s and 90s know that voice immediately.
Yeah, it's a very unique and special voice.
Very unique. Uh all of his little characters. I forgot about all the different like voices that Jim Varney would do as Ernest.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, he
was
flows in and out of, like, a very formal announcer voice, and, like, he just does all of the silly things like that, the little small he does so many crazy things, and yeah, with the lips going,
yeah.
yeah, he does so many faces and everything. He's incredible.
He was he was unique, and I think he was like such
Mhm,
a great little nugget, especially for our generation at that time. He's kind of you and I brought it, we just did our comedies and we talked about like
mhm,
old 90s comedies or those old silly, Steve Martin
mhm,
comedy, kind of that idea, that um, kind of way of approaching the slapstick. And Jim Varney was like he fit perfectly into that vein. Um, you
yeah.
can you can kind of tell with some of the later ones that vein had, dare I say, ran dry. But
Yeah.
we will get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I definitely I agree, and, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm extremely excited for this episode, but I did tell you last week that this isn't really a popular topic, like, we're not
No.
really tapping into a vein that everybody's psyched to hear about.
Right, right.
I don't I I don't know how many people actually care about Ernest P. Worrell or know who Jim Varney is and his specific kind of comedy. But so I told you it might just be an episode for us that we find fun and funny. But I like an hour before we sat down to record, I posted on Instagram about our top 10 comedies and did like your number 8 or something.
Yeah.
And somebody DM'd us and they're like, I really hope Jim Varney is on this top 10 comedy list. And I was like, I like did a double take at my phone. I was like, have I just been preparing for this episode and I just misread his name, or is this for real? And I was like, oh, brother, have I got a story for you? We are about to record an entire episode. So there are people out there, absolutely. And that
There
single
are.
message completely fired me up for this episode.
Well, so you said it might just be for you and I. And I thought about that. And I'm pretty sure I
Yeah.
even told you last time, like, I don't care if it's just for you and I. Like, this is something.
I'm
Ernest was
fine with it.
he's a pretty, I don't want to say a huge chunk of our childhoods, but he was a part of our childhood, especially when it came to movies. Um,
Yeah.
and I know we were not the only ones that grew up watching these. So even if it is just you and I, cool. That just means we get to laugh and be silly for the next hour or so. And for if there's anyone else, especially whoever that I saw the message, but I can't remember the user. But whoever you are, bud,
Yeah.
this episode's for you. So feel free to comment and be silly with us at the same time. And to anyone else, let's get into this, dude. I was normally I'm never apprehensive when it comes to being nostalgic. I love nostalgia.
Yeah.
I love the silliness. Even if stuff doesn't hold up well, I still will connect to it, find that gem and be like, I'm going to hold on to this. Everyone else be damned. I was a little nervous going into Ernest because I was like what you had just said of like, man, are these going to be really bad? Am I going to understand why my mom just hated these movies so much? Like, I don't want to understand that. No offense, Mom.
Yeah.
But I was a
You're
little
worried
worried.
that you'll get to like that adult switch flipped in your
Right.
brain, and suddenly you're like, see it from an adult perspective, and you're like, no, this guy's the worst.
Yeah,
And then you lose that fond memory that you've had your whole life.
It was a gamble. It kind of was a gamble. Did you feel like when you put on?
I did, absolutely.
Did you watch them in order, or did you just kind of like watch?
I watched them in order, 100%.
Me too. Okay. When I put on Ernest Goes to Camp, I was all excited. I sat down, was like, yes, let's do this. And I hit play, and instantly my brain was at like that Kermit meme, right? Like, what if it sucks? And it was like, oh no, oh no. Luckily, I did not have that happen. I was, it hit that little child, like that inner kid instantly for me. I was giggling the whole time. Granted, it was like that little inner child, but with kind of the adult eyes. So it was watching it being like, this is bad, but I fucking love this.
Yeah, it's not good by any means, but it is really, really fun. And I think that that's the joy of it, is if you can tap into how fun it is and how fun Ernest is and how much fun Jim Varney is trying to have and trying to portray to kids, it's just a great time. Like, there's nothing wrong with it at all, and it absolutely held up.
Yeah, I was so happy just watching all the silliness, and I definitely had moments. I'm pretty sure I had kid outbursts of like, those kids suck. Like the bullies at the camp, dude.
Yeah.
It's like they suck.
Yeah.
And then I also had that inner part of me of like, I really wish someone would pick a fight with these kids. Like, I kind of want to see people throw down. It's been a few years. I don't remember a throwdown, but I feel this deserves it. Now, it was an early movie, so
I did have an adult
really
moment. That's true. I did have an adult moment where I was watching it and the kids get picked up from the detention center, the like delinquent kids. And I was like, how old are they? These kids are like 10 years old. How, like, they're not like 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Like, they are maybe 12. Like, they're really freaking small.
So I had forgotten about him like breaking the fourth wall. I had completely forgotten
Mhm.
about that. I forgot about the whole toilet gag that he has with the plunger and looking into it and doing the EU that he does, which that was the moment he did that. I was like, yep, I'm sold. Toilet humor, silliness. Yep, I'm right back in it. But
Yeah.
the one of the camp counselor dudes, he's the one that's on the lifeguard chair, the real
Yeah.
the real
The one that, like,
prick
teaches him to swim by throwing him in. Yeah.
teaches him to picks the kid up. You're gonna learn today. It was like that John Wayne clip, right? Where he just throws the
Yeah,
kid into the
exactly.
river.
It's the John Wayne method.
But that one, the John Wayne clip was like funny and like, yeah, that's old school. The Ernest Goes
Yeah.
to Camp clip of him throwing this kid in the pool or in the lake was like, that's almost a hate crime, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like, when it's the Old West, you understand, but when it's the '90s, you're like, "Parents are not going to go for this." Like, that kid is gonna get in trouble.
Like, but so there was a lot of stuff that I guess I just didn't remember. All I really remembered about the Ernest movies was like the silliness, some of the slapstick, over the top kind of obnoxiousness that he would get into. But
Mhm.
I forgot a lot of the gags. I forgot kind of what every movie was actually about. It was weird.
Yeah.
It was like my inner child had just clung to the idea of these movies, right? Like I remember laughing really
They
hard.
all have they all have really weird plots, like, I did not
Yeah,
remember that at all.
I
Because
didn't
it's
remember the
like,
plots at all.
you think of it and you're like, "Oh, it's just Ernest at camp," and it's like, no, it's not really about that. It's about this mining company who wants to steal the land that the Native Americans have built a camp on, and Ernest he's a handyman who really wants to be a counselor, and then they go to war with this mining company, basically.
It's the escalation in all
Mhm.
9 movies is kind of crazy. And they always
Yeah.
start off with like your basic storyline. Like Ernest Goes to Camp is he's the handyman who just wants to be a camp counselor so that he can like help kids, be there for the kids,
Right.
help help develop them or whatnot. And you're like,
Yeah.
this is wholesome. And then you get
Yeah.
this like greedy baron guy who's like, we need to trick the Native American old man who doesn't speak English into signing his property to us so that we can mine it for this potential uh what is it? It's some
Mystical
weird
mineral.
yeah, there's like
Yeah.
some
It's it's
weird
not a real thing. It's just like a made up word for a rare mineral or
it's
something.
almost like every Ernest movie is two different movies that they just kind of like meshed together. There's
Yeah.
like the camp movie and the adult like greed is bad movie. And then they're like, well, how do we
It
conclude this? Well, Ernest will lead the charge with the most
Mhm.
random weapons, and we'll call it good there.
Yeah, no, they will recruit children into a war with these like bad guys and basically attack them with turtles,
Yeah,
obviously.
with turtles
Yeah.
attached to parachutes that like to bite.
Yeah, I noticed in all of the movies that the villains are the most nefarious ever. Like every other character in the movies is just a normal person, except for Ernest, who is crazy and like a cartoon character. And then the villains are also kind of like a cartoon character, where they are just the most evil, nefarious, like
Right?
out of your mind. Nobody would ever do this kind of thing.
Yeah, it was Ernest Goes to Camp was a trip, dude. I was laughing so hard, and then I was laughing out of confusion once all
Mhm.
the like greedy villain guy really his storyline kind of really took off. And then I had to laugh because they did like there was this kind of comedy trope, at least with like the bumbling idiot comedies, right?
Mhm.
Where it was he's lovable because he's just kind of there. Like, he's not actually dumb. He's just kind of like,
Yeah.
he's goofy. He's kind of
Right.
accident prone. He manages to get himself into weird situations,
He's
but
a
he always
goofball.
means well. And then he royally fucks up, and like the worst possible. I mean, you really gotta try to fuck up as bad
Yeah.
as Ernest does. And then
Mhm.
everyone will hate him for like 2.5 minutes, but then he will be the
The
hero.
length of a song.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah. I didn't remember the song, but I really like the song that he
I
sings,
really,
the "Gee, I'm glad it's raining."
oh my God.
Ah,
He started singing it, and I was like watching it, like, oh, sweet moment. And I don't know if
mhm,
anyone else, well, as a kid, you guys probably might not remember this, or Jake. I don't remember the song, but when he started singing it and I was watching it this time, I was like, one,
mhm.
this is a pretty good song. And two, like,
Yeah.
uh Ernest is kind of like pelting the feels just a little bit right now. What the
Yeah.
hell is
He's
happening here?
he was cutting some onions almost for me, I gotta say.
Yeah.
He was really good. I wish that there were more songs like that. Like, I guess Jim Varney sang it himself, and he did it all in one take, and people were tearing up on set because
And
he's
people
great
cried
at
on
it.
set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I have found a lot of stories, not just with like Jim Varney and the song, but like monologues or takes. You and I have talked about a couple, where
Mhm.
on set when these scenes are filmed or performed, like it affects people. I would almost want to be on a set, obviously, just to see the whole production, but for one of these
Mhm.
moments, because that has to hit you on such a different level than watching it on the screen. It'd be like going to a concert. When you're there, it's so much
Yeah.
different than when you watch it on, you know, a screen. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
I
you
forget
have
where
all
I
of
was
the
going.
extra stress of being, like, in the take, and they need to do it right, nobody can mess it up,
Yeah.
and it's, like, for it to all go so smoothly and then also kind of elevate to another level, go above and beyond, and
Right.
you kind of forget that you're watching a movie production. That must be what it's like, it must be amazing.
So good. I I had remembered kind of like, I know the Ernest movies were wholesome,
Mhm,
but they are really wholesome. Like Ernest, at least in the first four,
mhm,
really truly means so well. And all of his like
mhm.
idiot moments, I never questioned his intelligence. You know, unlike if you
Right.
watch Dumb and Dumber, where it's like, no, these guys are actually just, they're dumb. And that's the comedy. Ernest is like, no, this guy's not dumb. He's just
Mhm.
always in a ridiculous situation. He never like, he has no filter, I guess, for how his body or mouth reacts to stuff, but it's in a wholesome way. He always means well.
Yeah.
And I had
Yeah,
forgotten
he's kind
about
of just he's a little weird. He's invents stuff. He does a lot of different things. He reacts in weird ways. He's kind of a weird guy, but he's definitely I got that too. I was like, this he knows a lot of good phrases and he
that.
doesn't use the right words all the time, which is part of the joke that he'll use words that sound like the word he's trying to use, and it's really funny. But he definitely is not dumb. He references a lot of books and movies and TV and stuff. He's definitely experienced or read.
Yeah. I just, man, rewatching Nerds Goes Camp, when it ended for me, I was just like, it was late. And I was kind of like, I know I should go to bed. But I was riding just this like happy high, like this natural, just
Mhm.
happy euphoria of like, nah, I'm going to continue this one. Of course, I had to rewatch uh, Christmas because I may have fallen asleep because it turns out that natural
Yeah,
high, like,
only
when
lasts
you're
so
in your
long.
30s, that natural high is like, you made it to 7:30. Oh, you're trying to go till 9? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it. I had that like natural high as well, where I don't know, maybe it was being transported back to that time as a kid, and also what it was like in the 90s and 80s, that everything felt less stressful and everybody was less like in your face about stuff. And it
Yeah.
was so enjoyable watching this movie about this old Native American guy who owns this camp, and basically enjoys having all these kids come and learn about
Mhm.
like the nature and the kind of the tribe. They use like all of their symbols and everything, and they get to shoot bows and arrows and all this stuff. It was just such a fun experience. I feel like if you make this movie now, there would be so much of like there's so much animosity in society now between like
Yeah.
these kids are white. They shouldn't like you shouldn't go and get involved in this because it's their thing and you can't be a part of it. But it's so much more meaningful if like these kids aren't being mean. They are actually interested in learning about their culture.
Right.
They think it's great. They're excited to be braves and become warriors, and when the chief like helps them, they care about his camp and they care about him. And so it was such a great, I don't know, it's such a great, it's not like whites versus Indians. It's just
Mhm.
people who are right and want to protect the camp versus people who are mean and evil and want to take the camp.
Well,
And it was such a wholesome way to approach it, I thought.
yeah, and I liked how the I mean, it was a little forced, but at that time it works. So it held up for me. But like the group of delinquents that Ernest ends up being the counselor for, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, they're like the mighty ducks of this camp almost, but they just don't want to like they're just there because they kind of have to be, and they're like being given an opportunity, but every opportunity is met with like 5 steps back, and to see
Mhm.
Ernest kind of work with these kids and constantly try and keep them going, and then when they do participate and it gets ruined, seeing them like at first being, oh, this sucks. Like, what's the point? Of course, in that same
Mhm.
line, I had to laugh that in the same moment that the one kid is like throwing this tantrum of like, screw this, this isn't worth it, just send me back. Same line, he's like, you know what, guys? Ernest is right. We can't give up. I'm gonna go and build another one. You're like, I like your turnaround, kid. I like your turnaround,
Yeah.
but wow,
Yeah.
you might
A
want to
little heavy
process
on
some
the
emotions a little bit here. But I
Yeah.
like that even the animosity that's like portrayed in the movie just from the campers and some of the other counselors against the delinquents or against Ernest. Um,
Mhm.
eventually they all like everyone seems to have this collective understanding of like, oh yeah, this camp is just supposed to be this place where we all kind of are able to spend time and get away from like any kind of stress of the world and just learn something cool, something different. Um,
Yeah.
I was really, really taken off guard with the very opening, like the very beginning of Ernest Goes to Camp, to the
Okay.
point where I had to pause it to be like, is this is Ernest, right? Because I completely forgot about the ritual that you get to
Oh, yeah.
get to witness. That you're like,
You
this
get a
is
little
it,
context, yeah.
yeah, you're like, well, this is clearly gonna come back at some point in the movie. Of course, it comes back in kind of a hilarious way, but
Mhm.
watching Ernest not get hit by the stuff is like, I love absurdity in comedies back then. It works so
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
But
the most absurd part has to be the turtles when they launch
the
the
turtles.
parachute. The turtles in parachutes, they put them on rockets. Uh, I I died laughing, honestly. Like, I'm no joke. The funniest part to me is when they're strapping the turtles to the parachutes and they're putting them on the rockets, and then there's just a close up of 2 turtles. And then there's a voiceover, and then, like, in a high squeaky voice, he's like, "I'm scared, Sarge." "We're all scared, son." I could not stop laughing at those turtles. It was the funniest thing.
It's stuff like that, and you and I, kind of touched on like comedy approaches back then.
Mhm,
If they tried that kind of stuff these days, I feel like there wouldn't be such a good or such a innocence to it because that's such a like childish thing to do. And I feel like if you tried to do that these days,
mhm.
someone would just, I don't know how they would mess it up, but I feel like they would. But
Yeah,
watching that made me laugh because I was like, every moment of this movie that it's set in the real world, it's set like here. But
yeah.
yeah, turtles are parachuting and talking to each other, but it sounds like either Ernest is making the voices himself as they're parachuting down,
Mhm,
or kids are making the voices for the turtles. I was,
yeah,
yeah,
and
the
it's such
whole
a
fight at
quick
the end,
thing
dude.
that you just don't question it.
You don't question it. You just instantly you're like, I will suspend all disbelief for what I'm watching
Mhm.
because it's so fun. I had such a blast watching Ghost of Camp. I was so happy during this movie. I couldn't believe it. And when I was just like, I was expecting it to finish and just be like, all right, we're good, good. Nope.
That's good because you have a bunch of other movies to watch
I know.
after. I didn't realize that it was a Disney property either. Like, when I was
Oh
watching it
yeah,
when I was a kid, I didn't know that Disney I guess I didn't know Touchstone was part of Disney, which is part of it. But it's one of the weird things about the 90s. Like, I feel like Jim Varney's kind of niche and Ernest is kind of niche, but he was huge in like the 90s.
yeah.
And that's the whole reason that Disney signed him, is that he had started out making these commercials, just like local commercials,
Well,
and
yeah. Ernest,
and he's
he was specifically made for commercial use. Like there had
Mhm,
never been a thought for any franchise to it. It was like we have this character who's going to help us sell Coca-Cola. He's going to help us
mhm,
sell, I think it was Taco John's. Um, and then there was one other
yeah.
one that like his that character was specifically contracted to. I can't remember the third one.
Yeah, and
It'll come to me.
he got so popular that so many other brands wanted to use Ernest, and through the previous, marketing campaigns, they had signed, like, exclusivity deals, and so he really
Mhm.
couldn't accept anymore, so then they pivoted and put him in TV and movies and stuff
Yeah.
after that, and apparently Disney didn't know anything about him. They did, like, some big race thing, I think it was in, like, Kentucky or something, and Disney was, like, a sponsor of it, and they went out there, and they had Mickey Mouse, like, ride around on the car, and everybody cheered, of course, and then Jim Varney comes along in a car, and everybody loses their mind in the audience, and the Disney execs are like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And so it was definitely a big deal in the 90s to have Ernest on stuff, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. His those famous close-up shots of him making one of those ridiculous smiles that he was known for. Those
Mhm.
covers I think are like, man, that's like iconic childhood poster right there. That would
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a very specific style. I mean, they have to have used, like, some sort of fisheye lens because it gets, like, close
Oh
and it
yeah.
fills the
Well,
screen, and
I mean, you brought it up where he's like he really is like a living cartoon. I felt
yeah.
like I felt like Ernest could almost be a Mr. Magoo who can actually see,
Mhm.
where he's like he has that
That's
same
fair.
kind of allure. He's always in some kind of dumb situation. Obviously, he's going to be clumsy and just kind of be like, okay, you know what I mean? All right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I am so impressed by how Jim Varney performs, and I was watching him, and I genuinely feel he's a once in a generation talent. The problem is that he's born in the same generation as Jim Carrey, and they're both Canadian, and and they're both breaking out in like sketch comedy shows. And so he just didn't get to that level, but he has the same amount of physical acting,
Yeah,
characters. He just disappears into all of the different family members that he pretends to be. He's amazing.
absolutely amazing. And I think where the difference, and I think this may have, I mean, obviously it was very successful for him. Um, Unfortunately, he was kind of like a crazy chain smoker for his whole life, and it kind of didn't work out for him. But
Yeah, caught up
um,
with him.
I feel like Jim Carrey hit a wider audience, or with
Yeah,
especially in '94 when Carrey reigned supreme over all things entertainment and comedy. Um,
yeah, he was trying
but
to
Jim,
appeal to a lot more than just kids.
yeah, and Jim Varney really went the family route, and is specifically geared towards children. But it made me think about like kids programming, kids movies, all of that. It was all just like Ernest, where it was all based in kind of a reality, but it leaned so heavily into the silliness that kids want to see, embrace, and try to have fun and play.
Mhm,
And it was just like, man, Ernest was he was perfect for that market. And I mean, obviously the success of the franchise kind of proves that, even with the
mhm.
as the numbers dwindled down. Um, but those early years, yeah, I remember people being excited for the next Ernest movie, and we'll get to it here in a little bit. When Scared Stupid came out, I mean that
Yeah,
I've got possibly a hot take when we get to that one, that I think
okay.
you'll laugh about. Um, but I was, I think overall, especially with this first one, what I was taken off guard the most was like, man, this is so like it's a different kind of wholesomeness, and it was just a very fun wholesomeness. I was just like, this is fantastic. I kind of wish we had or could have this
Mhm.
stuff now. Like, hey, we need the next dude up to bat. We need our next Ernest. We need please
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely every generation, like I said, the Three Stooges were a big part of the past generations, and Jim Varney, and I think that there will always be that. That's kind of every kid finds that entertaining. And the fact that we
Mhm.
still find them funny now, I don't think it's just nostalgia. I think that
No.
they're actually pretty timeless comedies. They're very simple but very timeless. And so you can have a kid who finds it funny and an adult, a dad, finding it funny at the same time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well,
So
the next
speaking
one.
of timeless, yeah, I you have a hot take about the Halloween one. I genuinely think Ernest Saves Christmas is a great Christmas movie, and I should have been watching it more and more over the years.
Thank you. When I
As soon
was
as I
watching it, I
started
was
it, and
like, go ahead.
as soon as the credits started, and it starts putting up the Norman Rockwell paintings, and the carols are playing, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is perfect."
Yeah, I was again completely forgot what it was actually about. Forgot that it takes place in
Mhm.
Florida. Um, completely forgot Santa Claus is like a major part of the whole movie. Forgot there's like another delinquent child that Ernest kind of
Mhm.
inadvertently teaches to be good. She kind of challenges herself through, like,
Yeah.
because of how Ernest acts and thinks and approaches stuff. She like has to second guess a few things. Um,
And it's funny that is aware that she's a delinquent. He's kind of like there's a couple times where he's at like on Santa's side trying to get Santa to like look out for her. He's
Yeah.
like, "Be careful. I mean, she could steal from you. She could do these things." And Santa's like, "No, no, we should trust her. You should learn to trust people. They'll surprise you more than you think." And I was like, that is an odd thing for Ernest to like be aware of the fact that
Well,
she
I
could
found
be
it could
bad.
be odd, but then I remember, then you got to remember, like, Ernest isn't, he's not a complete idiot. Like, he's still
Yeah.
pretty aware of stuff, and he's still just like, it's not that he's saying don't trust her. To me,
Yeah.
it was like, just kind of, she's learning. So we got
Mhm.
to do baby steps here, kind of mentality,
Yeah,
right?
he's a very worldly person. He's does all kinds of jobs in all kinds of places, and so he's very experienced in the much how the world works, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I I found myself kind of disappointed in myself watching Ernest Saves
Mhm,
Christmas because I was like, I have all these Christmas movies that I watch almost on repeat every December. Like, I go out for Christmas. I fucking love it.
mhm.
And I was like, you, sir, talking to myself, are the
Yeah.
dumbass. Because how do you have all these Christmas classics and you don't freaking have Ernest Saves Christmas? So I was like, all right, well, I know what I have to remedy this season because holy crap, what a
Mhm.
fantastic Christmas film. What a fantastic Christmas
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the whole thing. I The only thing I remembered was the reindeer at the airport warehouse and how they're in the boxes and how they end up on the ceiling. That's all I really remembered about this movie.
I my brain just I don't know why. I really don't know. I could try and like string some, I guess, philosophical bullshit real quick. Let's see here. I don't know why my brain like completely forgot all the wonderful moments about Ernest and these movies. But I will tell you, dude, rewatching these and seeing it again and just kind of being like reminded of it, I was ecstatic. Yeah, I
Mhm.
fell asleep the first time I rewatched Christmas, but I'm old. It was late and I was tired. Um,
It happens.
but when I rewatched it, I was just like, it made me like when it ended, it made me just kind of appreciate the Christmas decorations that my daughter and I have up. Made me appreciate them a little bit more. But there was one moment in this movie, Jake, that I
Okay.
was like, what the fuck? Who?
Okay, I
What
can't
is
wait.
going on here? So,
Mhm.
for those that don't, this will sound weird, but bear with me. I have these
Okay.
moments like every episode, don't I? Where it's like I'm gonna segue way out
Not
of left
enough.
field, and then I'm bringing it back. So don't worry.
I can't wait. More of it.
So, for those that follow me on social media or like you, Jake, I know you and Christy probably saw this. I had posted
I
a
do
little
follow you,
while
yes.
back. Um, like I miss snow. I really miss like
Mhm.
actual winter. I miss Colorado snowfall, those really pretty serene moments. Like I made this all sentimental post, but it's true. I fucking miss snow. Texas,
Yeah,
you need real winters. It's just a fact. So
yeah.
then we're gonna jump ahead because I've been on this like,
Okay.
man, I really just want snowfall. Like that's what I want. So I put on Ernest Saves
You going
Christmas.
to the Are you going to the airport and
And
asking old men
Santa
for snow?
is talking to this old guy and he asks him, "Well, what would you like for Christmas?" And the guy flat out says just like, I'd really like some snow. Just snow." And they make the joke of like, "Oh, it's
Mhm.
Florida." And Santa's like, "Well, see what I can do." But he walks away being like, "Snow. Hmm."
Yeah. It's like, "I thought you wanted a stereo system."
Right. The dude said that and I was like, "Well, that's a funny coincidence, but whatever." And
Yeah.
then, you watch the movie and you know what happens. There's
Mhm.
no spoiler.
A
Um,
miracle.
and I was just like, this dude in a state where the snow just doesn't happen. wanting snow, and then there's snow. I was just like, "Oh god, what the fuck? What is this? Is such a weird coincidence to me." So, I'm not gonna lie, if it freaking
So you're telling me there's a chance.
snows down here, everyone's gonna hear me, like, shout about it. I am gonna be like I'm gonna be like, George in It's a Wonderful Life running down the street, screaming at people all happily, probably
Yeah.
terrify a lot of people, but I won't care. But yeah, that was
Mhm.
as I'm watching Ernest Saves Christmas, them mentioning snow in a state that doesn't get it. I was just like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
this was one of those moments where a movie hits a little too close to home, and it was like from a movie that you would never expect. And I was just like,
Right.
what,
You're just living your life.
what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I didn't remember the whole plot of Santa flying to Florida to find a replacement for himself because he's old, 150 years old, and needs a replacement to take over for him
Mhm.
and wants this kid's TV show guy to take over for him. Did you ever, while you were watching it, feel like I don't really like the guy that you want to replace Santa with? And also, you have Ernest who's like, I love Christmas. I love everything about Christmas. And I know all
Right.
Santa's reindeer. And I was like, Ernest should replace Santa. He would be perfect for it.
I think Ernest would be perfect in just like working at the workshop. I think
He's
Ernest
like
would
a
be
head elf
perfect
kind
for
of guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like honorary elf, like perfect for that. Perfect kind
Yeah.
of symbol of the spirit of the season. Um, I think Ernest proves
Yeah.
his sleigh flying skills need a lot of refining, but um,
That's true.
I was definitely weary of the dude that Santa was like, "This is the guy. I'm pretty sure this is the
Hmm.
dude. I've been watching him for a while." And I was like, "Yeah, he seems pretty like he's trying to be wholesome. Like he has a good heart, but I'm not
Hmm.
sure if he's Santa material." And I kind of had to
Right.
think about that, Jake, because I was like, Santa, the symbol of Santa, the character of Santa is like held in such a high regard and held in such a
Hmm.
like you kind of have to be perfect. You have to be a certain way to be Santa.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, am I just being extra judgy? Cause like I'm watching a guy who's clearly Santa who's like
Yeah.
gonna pass the torch on, and I'm just kind of in a disagreement about that idea. Or does this guy really kind of rub me wrong? But I was like, I don't know. He seems
Yeah.
like when
It
he
doesn't help
has
that
his
I do really love the Santa in this movie. Like he's a Miracle on 34th style Santa, you know? He's
which
great.
is like my favorite kind of Santa. That is my image of Santa is just that pure, wholesome, just
Mhm.
yeah, he's real kind of Santa. Love
Mhm.
it. And to see him like go into this guy who's trying to like, well, do I sign with this movie studio to make this terrible monster flick that I disagree with? I can't even say the line "son of a bitch," which made me laugh because I
Yeah.
was like, "It's an Ernest movie. They're not gonna curse in an Ernest movie."
He's like, "Son of a I can't do it."
I can't say it. Um, yeah, I was a little weary, but I feel my weariness was just a kind of a generalized principle like prejudice against the idea of Santa being like, well,
Mhm.
I got to pass the torch on because I'm like, no, no, unless you fall off of a roof and Tim Allen picks the suit up, like you don't pass the torch, my good sir. You're a
Yeah.
legendary figure. You survive for all time.
Yeah, they do an interesting thing of trying to expand the Santa lore in a
Yeah,
different way, where there's been a lot of different Santas and they pass it on every so often, and once you get the mantle, then you get all of his, like, memory and abilities, and he can see everybody while they're sleeping and all that stuff. It's kind of
Right.
it's interesting. I don't mind it. I thought it was entertaining for sure. I thought
Very
that the
entertaining.
whole
Very.
movie had like one of my it's probably one of my favorite, possibly my favorite Ernest movie of the whole bunch. It's one or two. Um, and I think it's just because of it has everything. It has Ernest doing different characters where he goes as that his aunt or whatever that
The
is.
old
That
lady,
character is in
dude.
all
The
of
old
them.
lady is his old lady is like the shining moment of an Ernest movie where you're like,
Yeah.
yes, there she is.
Yeah, she's absolutely amazing. But then he plays like a snake wrangler on the set, and the snakes are hilarious. And there's so many just little quips. Like my favorite part of the Ernest movies are the little tiny pieces of dialogue that he throws in there and and says things that you can very easily miss if you're busy laughing, which you often are.
his his random monologues when he's like building himself up to do the next thing. He has like these huge monologues. He drops the voice
Hmm.
so that he's like narrator voice.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Ernest P. Worrell, champion of the people, going to save all of the. Yeah, he's amazing. And it also does the thing where if you've ever seen like the show, the original show, the Hey Vern, It's Ernest show, um, Vern is in this movie, which he's not in the camp movie, and so his neighbor is Vern, who is you never see him. He basically is the camera, and so
yeah,
Ernest will talk into the camera as if he's talking to Vern, and the camera moves around. And in classic style, Ernest basically destroys his entire house by ripping cords out of the walls and doing all kinds of nonsense. That's maybe one of my favorite parts is the whole Vern part.
yeah. All the gags, the old lady gag that he does. The part that made me laugh really hard because it was just like, I don't know why. Of all the ridiculous things, him slamming on the brakes in the middle of the highway to save the Christmas tree made me laugh.
Yeah.
But him chucking the tree into the back seat with
Mhm.
Santa sitting back there and it like smashing out the window, I lost it. I was just like,
Yeah.
that's
Hang on, little Tannenbaum, I got you.
I love that quick scene. It just because that might be the most ridiculous thing Ernest has ever done, where he's just like,
It
I'm gonna save
proves
this
his
tree.
love of Christmas. He can't
But it
let a
proves his
tree
life.
fall off and be destroyed on the highway. Yeah. He just has to
But
save
again,
it.
he always means the best. He has like the most
Yeah.
wholesome heart. He just goes about doing it in kind of like, well, childish ways where you just don't really think like
Yeah.
the guy in the car is
Yeah.
not going to mind if I put the tree back there with him.
Nor will the taxi company that have to take his car back
Nor
to.
will the taxi company. Oh my god, laughing so hard
Yeah, I
during that
also
movie.
really enjoy I enjoy all of the recurring actors as well. Like in
The
every movie, the same actors show up, and the two
yeah,
guys at the warehouse with the reindeer, and
two guys.
they're at the camp. They were the chefs and all of that stuff. There, it goes all the way back to the original like Doctor Otto movie and the
Mhm.
original TV show sketches, and they've just been doing it the whole time. Same with Jim Varney, same with the director John Cherry. He kind of does all of it, and that's why it all feels coherent. I guess feels everything feels very earnesty.
Yeah. Yeah, this was I was laughing. I was mad at myself for not like having this in my collection, but that will be remedied.
Mhm.
I promise you that's going to get remedied real freaking fast. Uh
Good.
what a joy. And you've said it a couple times of like this might be your favorite Ernest movie, one or two. Um
Hmm.
I'm right there with you. Uh it might be my favorite just because of like I'm pretty biased towards Christmas in general, but
Yeah.
this one just felt like the perfect Ernest film. It had the
Hmm.
perfect amount of silliness, The heart was completely on display from beginning to end. You're always on Ernest's side, which you should always be. I thought the
Yeah.
story was actually pretty cool of just like Ernest
Mhm.
immediately being like, "Oh, I've got the guy in the car with me. All right, I've got the dude. Here we go." And then he's got the delinquent girl, and just the way Ernest interacts, he's never preachy,
Yeah.
right? Especially with the delinquent kids and camp, and with the girl in Christmas, he's never like preachy
Mhm.
to him. He never hounds them
Yeah.
about stuff. He just kind of like he's so matter of fact, but in such a weird, different way. And it's always like,
Mhm.
know what I mean? And it's those moments that you're like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, he's never comes across as, like, someone who's wise or trying to impart knowledge or lecture them or
right.
whatever. He's a peer, basically, at least as far as status goes. He wants to be at the same level as them.
Yeah. And yeah, the reindeer on the ceiling. I love how their reactions go from like kind of scared to disbelief to just like it is what it is. Like the
Mhm.
animal control team
I sure
showing
hope
up.
somebody picks these up.
Never be too
Yeah, that
safe.
was amazing.
Uh, yeah, I
Yeah.
was I was overjoyed watching Ernest Saves Christmas, and I can't wait to rewatch it again and again and again. This one hit all the perfect
Mhm.
notes for me, dude. I was so like thrilled with this movie.
So what did you think about Ernest Goes to Jail? Because I think it gets really insane really quickly.
Mhm. So this is one of those things as a child that I do actually remember pretty well. As a kid,
Okay.
this was my favorite Ernest movie when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
loved Ernest Goes to Jail. So when we decided to do this episode, and I was overjoyed with camp, and then I was completely just like, holy crap, I am super holly jolly with Ernest Saves Christmas. I was completely just, Ernest isn't gonna fail me. The nostalgia's gonna be right there. I can't freaking wait. And I was right.
Yeah.
I still love Ernest Goes to Jail. Christmas is my favorite. But
Uh-huh.
the ridiculousness of Ernest Goes to Jail, man, that's up my alley. The whole like him being magnetized bit that they do throughout the
Yeah.
movie.
It's
I
the most cartoony for sure.
He is definitely the most cartoony. I was losing it when he's getting chased by the fucking filing cabinets inside the bank where he's got to lock himself
Uh-huh.
inside the vault. Dude, the gags are still fantastic. I
Yeah.
will say, as much fun as I had with it, the final like fight scene does go on for quite a long time where you're like, this should have been resolved a few
Yeah.
minutes ago, guys. Like, we're
Yeah.
good.
It it changes from him being magnetized by electricity to him, like, inverting gravity, and he can fly around the room, and, yeah, it does take a little while to resolve itself.
It it
I
takes a
I
while.
couldn't I had my adult brain on for a minute, and I couldn't get around the fact that a pretty popular kids character that everybody loves and is very wholesome and fun, has 2 movies so far, a very popular show that he won a Daytime Emmy for. People love it, and it's a very wholesome character. And then the writers sat down to think, "What comes next?" and landed on Ernest going to jail, of all things. Like, one of the most terrible and depressing and scary and murdery and rapey thing you can do. Let's send Ernest there. That sounds great.
Yeah,
But they
I
also had to do it in a way that Ernest didn't do anything wrong in order to get there, which is very also entertaining that he has to get tricked into ending up in jail. Like you
he
said in the
just
first movie, it's the most complicated story or 2 different
it
stories
just
happening in order to get him there.
and the execution of it, I had to laugh watching it now because I was like, none of the decisions that any adult is making in this movie makes
Mhm.
any kind of sense of how an adult would do, especially when it comes to like a judge or a jury
Mhm.
or inmates or
Right,
security guards,
right.
both in jail and at the bank, or owners of the bank or tellers. When does Ernest actually sleep? When does
Yeah.
like what the hell is going on? And how does no one notice it's clearly not Nash anymore? Their voices are
Mhm.
completely different. Uh what the hell is people what? I
Yeah.
had a little bit of adult time, but it was okay because then something silly and dumb would happen on screen and I would start laughing and it all
Mhm.
was made better. Um dude,
I think one of
this
the
is
ways
also
they
the
made
one.
prison not scary is that the guards wear pink outfits.
Pink. And like not just pink
Like, what
outfits, but did you notice how like pointy and
boxy?
shoulder patty?
Yeah.
Yeah, their
Yeah, they're
suits.
like big square pink boxes of I don't know what that decision was, but it was pretty funny.
It was funny. It was very funny. Everything about it made me laugh, except for like the one inmate he's the guy that sets up the whole switch that goes on.
Yeah, the one on
He's like
trial.
the angriest character in these first three Ernest movies. And the whole time I was like,
Mhm.
I think you might be the only truly negative character in the whole franchise right now. Of course, I'm proven wrong in movies to come, but I
Yeah.
was like, this guy, you kind of don't fit this movie, bub. You kind of need to just like shut up and go away.
Lighten up. Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, you should stop it. Just stop it. Um, yeah, I also love like you get to meet Ernest's dog, Rimshot, which I found to be the most random name for a dog ever.
Yeah. Like, the more he starts yelling "Rimshot" at the end of the movie over and over, and I was like, "I can't be hearing this right. That's the name of this dog?" It's like, "Rimshot, get him, Rimshot. Rimshot, come on." I'm like, "Are you serious right now?"
You get to see Ernest's home with all of his weird
That's the
like
funnest part.
contraptions where it's supposed to
That's how
be
you
kind
know
of
he's not stupid. He's, like,
right.
pretty darn smart to invent all of those appliances.
Well, his appliances, my favorite thing about those is they're kind of made to work with his like clumsiness. Like
True.
they're
They're
specifically
custom.
tailored to his clumsiness, which is perfect. But
Yeah.
I had to laugh because I was like, "Oh, this is like Doc Brown's version of the breakfast maker at the beginning of Back to the
Yeah.
Future, but like not quite that sciency. This is just like
Yeah, if
tailored
it
to
was made by a non-scientist. If it was
a."
made by a janitor.
I loved it. I His house fit that character so well with just the most random
Mhm.
fucking contraptions that he made, and then you've got the dog. I Him being right next door to the brothers, the security guards, dude. So the two
Mhm.
actors that play I think they're brothers in this one.
Yeah.
I could not stop laughing how every interaction they have, he has to like the older one, the one that actually speaks, has to do the like his signal to go.
Yeah.
He's like
Mhm.
dying every time.
Yeah, and they're, like,
Every
shooting guns in the house, and they're hilarious, like, wannabe rent-a-cop kinda guys.
time. Ernest just casually walking by. Hold on, you're in the line of fire. Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, I love this one because you get to see Jim Varney play 2 characters so much,
Yeah.
like, he gets to play this nefarious killer in jail and who gets out and tries to rob a bank, and then you also get Ernest in jail who's, like, stuck there. It's a hilarious time.
It did take me off guard. Of all the things in Ernest Goes to Jail that I was like, how do we come here? And you brought up the beginning of this moment for me of like, how do you take one of the most wholesome characters of the 90s, early 90s, and you send him to jail? I'm gonna
Mhm.
I'm gonna top you and be like, not only did the
Okay.
writers think we'll send Ernest to jail, we're gonna put him on death row. What?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah,
when
I
they
did remember that.
when you find out that he's like on death row and only has a couple days
Mhm.
left to live, I
Yeah,
literally
he's
was like
about to be
watching
murdered.
it. Right. I'm watching the movie. You find out, and I just had that like, what? It was like that meme, the blinking meme or whatever that guy is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I guess
I
that's
was like,
happening.
wait, that's not where this movie goes, is it? And then they come up to him. All right, Nash, it's time. And they're like dragging him down. He's got his whole thing in the cell
Mhm.
of like, I'm ready. So be it. I've made my peace or whatever his whole monologue is. And then he's like, oh, please,
Uh-huh.
fellas. No, no. I was like,
Yeah.
I liked this moment as a kid. What the? Thank God we get the magnet. Thank God.
Yeah, the whole opening pays off, and you're that was the thing. I was watching the beginning of the movie when he's mopping and getting electrocuted and getting magnetized, and I was like, "What is this movie about? And how does he get to jail? I don't even remember." And then he gets to jail and he's in the electric chair, and I go, "Oh, now
Yeah.
I see." Of course,
Like, all right. And,
he's
and, because what we've learned in the Ernest movies at this point is whatever ridiculous opening thing happens, it's going to come back. It'll tie to the ending
mhm.
somehow. It just is. Uh, yeah, I
And
was very
also,
happy.
Ernest is immortal. He's I don't know if he's a Highlander, I don't know what the deal is, but he's certainly immortal. He can't be electrocuted to death. He can't have nails driven into his skull. He can't have saw blades cut his skin.
He's
He's an
been
incredible human being.
he's been smashed by some
Yeah.
framing. Yeah. Um
Smashed by a whole football team, run right
Smashed
over
by
and
a
not
whole football
squished.
team. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think he is immortal. I think he is a legendary figure right up there with Santa. See? So he's
Mhm.
up there with the big man. Sure. Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I still thoroughly love Ernest Goes to Jail. I was laughing just as hard as I remember laughing as a kid. With the exception of like that final fight, the defying gravity, I was like, okay, this is silly. Okay, that's got to be the end. Oh, okay, we're still going. Oh, okay, guys. Like, come on. This is a bit much. Can we just let's lock you're not gonna kill Nash. Let's knock him out. Let's conclude the movie where Ernest gets to go home see his dog.
Mhm.
Did you find yourself being like Nash might be the most evil character in the Ernest franchise for one simple act that he does, and that is
What?
dropping Rimshot into the trash can and like closing the lid. He
Yeah,
did that, and I
it's
was
this
like,
is such
"What
a
the fuck?"
he's a bad guy for sure.
He's such a bad guy. It's like, what is this? Oh, yes, very silly, very fun. I still loved it. Oh. So
I
we're
feel
coming
like
to
Ernest
well,
Scared
we're now
Stupid
at
has to be the the one that I watched the most recently because it's the one I remembered the
well,
most.
it's the one that I remember growing up. Scared Stupid was like the most popular one. It was like everyone saw Scared Stupid. It was like a staple point for family Halloween movies, if their kids weren't allowed to watch normal horror. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember it being like the most successful one, but it
Mhm.
turns out it's kind of just like for some reason it wasn't actually that successful. It just was post. like major release, and then it was like household successful.
Yeah.
Kind of like a family movie version of a cult classic, but I don't know if a family
Right.
film can be considered. I don't know. That's a weird thing.
Well, it came out in a time when we had video rental stores, and it was very
Yep.
easy to just have something on the shelf and it to be around Halloween and be like, "Yeah, this is for kids. Let's just pick this up."
Right.
And it was a staple. Absolutely.
It really was. I'm going to get right to my hot take right out the gate with this one.
Do
First
it.
off, thoroughly enjoyed it. Forgot that it was a troll that this movie was about. And seeing the practical effects of the troll made me laugh so hard. And you and I are suckers for practical effects. We
Yeah.
just are. I was
Yeah.
like, yep, love it. This is still just as good as I remember. And here's my hot take. Brace yourself,
Okay.
people. I
I'm ready.
think Ernest Scared Stupid might be a better and more family friendly movie, Halloween movie, than Hocus Pocus. Oh,
Oh, why do you
oh.
say that?
I just felt the jokes were funnier. The wholesomeness of the story was all around better. I did read
Mhm.
some stuff where people were like, this movie's jacked up. The troll is like sucking the souls out of kids to bring his other troll siblings out. And I was like, I get that. But he's turning them into wood statues that you immediately know they're coming back.
Mhm.
Hocus
Right.
Pocus is literally about three witches trying to murder and eat children, and they're successful. And not only that,
And
but
you
they're
cheer
like,
for them while they do it.
and you're cheering for them, especially in the sequel when they tried to turn them into heroes and ruin the sequel. Oh, um, but they're going after virgins. They're actively trying to actually murder children. That's what Hocus
Yeah,
Pocus is about. Ernest Scared Stupid
sure.
is Ernest fights a troll who turns kids into a wood statue that you know are coming back
Yeah,
immediately. So I feel, and
yeah.
plus the gags, the silliness, it's Ernest style gags, it's family friendly, it's very silly. I just
Yeah.
felt like, yeah, this to me, Ernest Scared Stupid, just felt this is such a more, dare I say, appropriate family Halloween movie than even
Mhm.
Hocus Pocus, which is like, I love Hocus Pocus. It's funny as hell. But
Mhm.
this one just felt like, no, this feels better. It's just not as
Yeah.
like polished, I guess you could say. But that's my hot take.
Yeah.
I know I just rattled a lot of feathers, but I don't care. I stand by what I say.
I do think that I think Ernest Scared Stupid and Ernest Saves Christmas are the best ones, and I think
Yeah.
that they use the holidays that they're around so efficiently to make the story better. Both of them have incredible credit intros too. I love the
Mhm.
Scared Stupid credits also with all of the old black and white monster movies and stuff, and Ernest kind of
Yeah.
running from them. It's really, really fun.
Yeah. It
The whole
just,
thing is just like it's not scary. Although I do remember being a little scared by the witch lady, the like uh, I don't know what she really is, but
yeah.
she seems like an adventure lady. Yeah.
Eartha Kitt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but you're kind of like, as a kid, she fit that trope so well of like she lives in the old house that's all covered in the vines. It's not well kept. She's got the crazy
Mhm.
gray hair. She kind of talks crazy. Um, they allude to her already having kind of like a lore to her in this town, and then yeah, she's like prophesizing that Ernest is gonna like, you're gonna fuck up, and as the viewer, you're like, it's called plot. Of course he's going to.
I've seen an Ernest movie before. I know he's gonna fuck up.
Right. I know how this works, lady. It's okay. We need the
Yeah,
silliness. Um, yeah,
right.
it's just I just felt like, man, this is such a great and there is something different about the Ernest holiday movies compared to the others. They do feel different.
Mhm,
They feel like there is
mhm.
a little extra care almost put
Yeah,
onto them.
intentional,
Yeah, and
definitely.
you can tell it comes across. You can tell I tried finding stuff to confirm what I was kind of interpreting. It may have just been kind of like me convincing myself that I was interpreting this, but it it really felt to me that like Jim Varney was having the most fun with these holidays or being able to incorporate Ernest into these holidays, which already have kind of a
Mhm.
more childlike idea to them in general. So to throw Ernest into that mix just adds to the fun of
Yeah.
it. So to me, I felt like these are the stride. The holiday movies
Mhm.
are these are exactly how Ernest should be. These are perfect Ernest. Um, because he's not made to be completely dumb. You know, yeah, he's clumsy. He's still kind of that buffoon, but he's so much more wholesome and he means so more or so well, so much, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Uh,
Yeah.
and him
Means
interacting
well.
with kids in these movies, like you can tell there's the point. He's like actually
Mhm.
interacting with the target audience, and that's where it's really shining. I just think it's a joy. It
Yeah,
just
getting them involved in the caper, and that's the whole
yeah,
point of a kids movie.
it's so much fun. And the trolls, I freaking loved the trolls. I love the sounds, I love the design.
Yeah.
I love the random decision for a troll. I felt like this is such a left field decision and for some reason
Yeah.
it, it I'm so glad it wasn't any other monster. This is
Yeah.
perfect for Ernest to go after because trolls are always kind of like they're trolls. I mean, we don't know.
Mhm.
Like, depends on which lore you go with.
Yeah. Yeah, they but they're not, like, too scary or too nefarious or even too intelligent. They're still kind of like a bumbling creature
Yeah.
that just has, like, the almost animal-like most of the time, and, so they can be kind of lovable even at the same
Mhm.
time.
Yeah. I, I felt just so joyful watching these movies and watching, was scared stupid. It was validating to me
Mhm.
that like 4 movies in and I still had the biggest smile. I was still just laughing and giggling and just having the time of my life watching these. And it wasn't just based out of nostalgia. It was like, no, I'm genuinely enjoying this. This is hilarious. I'm having a
Yeah.
blast with these movies. Loved it. It was so like, thank God. I'm so happy we did this.
Yeah, me too, I feel the same way. Uh, I'm curious if that ever ended for you, because I do know that they start to taper off from here. This was kind of the peak as far as ratings go
um,
for Ernest, and then shortly after this, they went to straight to
straight
video
to
instead
video,
of
yeah.
theatrical releases.
Yes. That that kind of it started off as like a slow like, oh, this one wasn't quite there for me. Rides Again
Mhm.
definitely was like, ooh, this one's struggling. Like something's off with
Yeah.
this one. And then they
It
recast
has
one
the
of the
longest it has the longest freaking chase scene that I felt was way too long. The whole cannon chase is
it's
like half the movie.
it's like watching the pod race scene again in episode 1 where you're just like, God damn. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Rides Again like had its moments that made me laugh. There's a couple good gags in it, but I
Mhm.
definitely felt like something was off. And I just kind of like, oh, shrug it off. Of course, recasting that one character, it was weird. Normally, I don't really bat an eye when an actor is no longer a part, like a favorite actor is no longer a part of it or whatever. It
Mhm.
really bothered me in this one. It really got to me.
Which actor are you talking
Uh
about?
Not the it was one of the duos. They changed one of the actors,
Oh,
not the
yeah.
old guy, it's the other guy, the heavier set guy. Um
Yeah, the guy that talks and makes
yeah,
jokes, yeah.
when they recasted him, I was like, "Ooh, whew, whew. This this doesn't he just didn't mesh. It just didn't
Yeah.
fit right." And I'm like, I'm trying not to hold it against the guy. He's doing the best he can, but like
It's not the same
it's
comedy team.
not the same. It's just not working. But I didn't
Mhm.
hate Rides Again. I just kind of felt like this one just isn't quite clicking like they normally
Yeah.
should.
I felt like it was a little overly complicated too with there's a lot of different people involved. He's Ernest is trying to help this professor find this cannon and it should have these crown jewels in it. But then you have like this other guy who's trying to find it first. And I mean I like the concept of Ernest going to be an adventurer and trying
Yeah.
to be an Indiana Jones type character, put him in that situation. But then it's mostly just him riding around on a cannon and running from the other, like, I guess, anti-adventurer guy who's also trying to find the same thing before them.
Well, and
And
then
then
you have
also
the
the actual
British that want
British
the crown
police
jewels.
trying to, yeah, they're also chasing them for a different reason. And the professor's wife is chasing them and trying to, you don't know if she'll support him or not, and
The professor's
it's
wife was
weird.
probably like the funniest part to me. Just how determined she
Yeah.
is and how she kept kicking people out of the car, just telling them, like, "You're giving me a ride. This is happening. You're gonna take me here." That made me laugh. Her character made me laugh in Rides Again. Um,
Yeah.
that's probably why I didn't like feel it was too bad because I was still laughing during parts of
Mhm.
it. Yeah, but
And it's
it
a lot like
definitely
Goes to
tapered for me.
Jail because Ernest is very cartoony. It's the one where
Mhm.
he the nails can't go into his head. He's like, "Oh, at least you hit me in the hard end," and they try to
Right.
saw his the everything gets stuck on his head. The actual crown is stuck on his head, so they try to saw his skull open, but it won't even. It will bend the blades. His skin won't even get cut, which is pretty funny times. There's a
Yeah.
really funny line when the professor's jumping onto the cannon, and the
Mhm.
professor's like, "It has to be 13 feet," and Ernest is like, "Don't get superstitious on me. Just jump." And so it definitely feels like an Ernest movie with all those like little lines
Yeah,
that you have to think about. You
it
have to
just
like be smart to actually understand the joke.
this was the 5th movie in, so you kind of expect, like, at some point, you're not gonna ride this, like, successful train for too long.
Hmm.
It's gonna have a few hiccups, and so Rides Again had the hiccups to me, and I was like, "Okay." I know they go straight to DVD or video back then, release right after this. But I was like,
Hmm.
maybe they kind of like, all right, that one didn't quite work. Let's get back into it. And then I realized I had never seen Goes to School. I had never seen
Okay.
Slam Dunk. And I had never seen In the Army. So these were
Okay.
first time viewings for me. Yeah.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
no possible chance of nostalgia other than
Not
your
on
love
these.
for
No.
Ernest, of
No
course.
possible nostalgia for any of the following. Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of Goes to School?
I hated it. I absolutely
Did
hated
you? I thought it was interesting that it was released 9 months before Billy Madison, which is basically the same plot, just
True.
without him
But Billy
magically
Madison
becoming
was
smart.
funny. Billy Madison was funny, and you had to watch an actual idiot kind of learn how to be smarter in the real world and
Mhm.
academically. Like, Billy Madison's funny. Ernest Goes to School kind of made me mad because this was the first one to me where they just straight up called Ernest an idiot. Like, they actually made
Yeah.
Ernest stupid. It was no longer just a like, oh, he's
Mhm.
just clumsy. He's just that lovable, goofball. No, they actually
Mhm.
make him dumb. And I was
Mhm.
kind of like, that was really off-putting to me. I was kind of upset. I was like, I can't believe Jim Varney was okay with this. Yeah, it has some pretty funny gags. Um,
Mhm.
well, like decent gags, but for the most part, I was mad during this whole movie because
Mhm.
I felt like the heart of the character, the heart of all the previous films, the silliness, it was like, well, the silliness was still kind of there, but
Mhm.
the wholesomeness was completely gone. They just like tossed it out. I found it pretty hard to believe, and these are Ernest movies we're talking about. I found it hard to believe that the character Ernest would decide to be willing to cheat, period.
Mhm.
And that's like the
Yeah.
sole part of Goes to School where he's like embracing cheating. Granted, it's like a bad OG Nutty Professor ripoff where he like changes outfit. His whole demeanor is way different. His hair is like glued to his head. Um, and he's kind of a pompous ass. I didn't like watching him be a pompous
Yeah.
ass. It worked for Jerry Lewis and the Nutty Professor, but it just didn't work for Ernest here. At least to me,
Yeah.
I was off put by Goes to School. It just did not do it for me.
Yeah, I think they must have dumbed him down in order to make a contrast with the smart
Mhm.
version, and because that is an opposite thing. They're trying to do the opposites of each
Right.
other, and but yeah, I agree. I think that the whole plot, it does feel like it's not like when he goes to jail and it's not his fault. He's still just kind of himself. He's just in this weird situation. This
Mhm.
is more he's making decisions that he probably wouldn't make on his own or wouldn't make if he was true to his character kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt off. And the parts that I feel should have been really funny, like when he's
Mhm.
the marching band leader and he's like kind of
Yeah.
losing it and he's like, "How do I do this?" To me, I was like, "Man, this would have been really funny," but they took away everything that I loved about Ernest. So watching him do very earnest things, like getting the marching
Mhm.
band to crawl around and be silly on the football field, it lost the comedy to me. I was very dude, this was
Mhm.
weird to me. I was just like, what the fuck happened to Ernest? Like, this isn't I was thinking, did John Cherry like abandon this project? Did Was he under contract? Was Jim Varney under contract that he had to do this? Like, what was going on with this movie? Who was
I think it
mad
was
at
the only
Jim?
one. I think it's the only one that John Cherry didn't do. Actually, I think
I
that's
know
this
there's
one.
one that he didn't do.
Yeah, this one was Coke Sams who directed and co-wrote it, and so it's the only one that John Cherry didn't do. So that could be part of it for sure.
That could be part of it, but yeah, I was not a fan. And I did laugh at one thing though, because this was a thing that I don't think gets joked about enough for movies
Okay.
from the 90s. And that
Uh-huh.
is high school teenagers in the 90s sometimes did not look like they were 16 years old. Sometimes they're like grown men. And so
Uh-huh.
the football jocks, I
Yeah,
had to
for
laugh
sure.
at like them looking much older than what I think they were portraying. But and then at the same time, I was like, but they're not funny. They're really annoying. That one dude's laugh
Yeah.
throughout the movie, I was like, dude, someone's got to shut
Oh
him up.
yeah.
Like,
When I saw the credits, I was excited that Will Sasso is in it, and then
yeah,
I watched his like character as one of those jocks, and I was like, I really wish they gave you a better role or more of a role because you're just very stereotypical and don't really get to. I know you're a super funny dude, but you just don't get the chance.
but it's just not happening in that one. So yeah, I don't have much to say on that one.
That's fine. Moving on. Slam Dunk Ernest, direct to video. How do you feel about that movie? Because I felt that it was less jokey than most Ernest movies and way more heartfelt. Uh, I think they emphasized the heartfeltness with the dad and his goal and his son and the son starting to really see Ernest as like a hero and a huge sports star, and then Ernest seeing that. And I felt that it was a good Ernest move to have Ernest see that this kid is not having seeing his dad in a negative way and
Mm-hmm.
just choosing to let go of the fame that he could achieve in order to actually fix things
Yeah.
and help the kid and help the dad. And that was a really good turn, I thought.
Yeah, this one I felt like they were attempting to get back on track a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Ernest making that decision to uh give the dad the spotlight again, and kind of like drop the kind of selfishness that he really embraces in this one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
thank God for him deciding to be wholesome again, because I gotta tell you, dude, I was a little perturbed again during this movie. I was like, all right.
Yeah, he's just getting a big head and not really
So
being
he's
wholesome
got
at
this.
all for a
Yeah,
while.
he became a pompous ass, not due to a machine, but now it's like magic shoes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't just a little bothered by that. I was kind of like, man, people are just like mean to Ernest in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's just a jackass in this movie. And I
Yeah,
was like,
everybody doesn't want him around. Like they treat him more negatively, I think, than most movies.
right. But you do have Kareem Abdul Jabbar playing like the angel basketball
Yeah,
angel character, which made me kind of
yeah,
chuckle. And then yeah, the wholesome decision that he makes, that you obvious, that's one funny thing. Every time there's like a foreshadow and an Ernest, you're like, clearly they're not trying too hard to be like, this is coming back, this
subtle.
will resolve.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but thank God for that wholesome moment. I still don't think this was that good of an Ernest movie, but at least I got a wholesome Ernest moment where he's like actively kind of dropping the selfishness and the pompous, uh,
Yeah.
that pretentious kind of attitude. So that was
It
nice.
reminded me of what you said about Ernest Goes to Jail, where none of these people make any sense. The guards and the bank owner and all these people, nothing they do make any sense. It's crosses the line, I think, in Slam Dunk Ernest, because he gets these magic shoes and he's like running way faster than anyone possibly could. It's not like it makes him the best basketball player in within a reasonable and realistic level. He's like, well, like Roadrunner running down
Mhm.
the basketball court. He's jumping and hovering in the air,
Literally
and everybody's
flying
like,
across the court. Yeah.
yeah. And everybody's like, yeah, go Ernest. You're just such a great basketball player. I can't believe how good you are. It's nobody else watching the same
And
movie
you're
that
like, there's literally zero like athletics happening right now. There's
yeah.
none. There's zero. Yeah.
And yeah, nobody connects the dots to it's the
No one
shoes that
bats
make
an
him do
eye.
it. They're just
Yeah.
like, man, I can't believe Ernest is so good. He's so much better than us. I really can't understand. We're never gonna get seen by scouts because Ernest is just too good.
Which cracked me up too. So this is Slam Dunk Ernest was 95?
Five. Yeah,
5.
five.
Um, so like the oldest dude playing in 95. I don't even know. I don't know basketball, but the dad, I don't know like how old the dad is supposed to be, but I'm assuming he's gonna be
Uh-huh.
late 20s, early 30s. Um,
Yeah.
I also had to laugh because I was like, is that the is that the FBI or the CIA agent from Conspiracy Theory? It kind of looks like him. And I meant to check that, but they kind of look alike. I'm gonna check that.
It could be. I
No,
don't even
that's
know how to say his name. Silk Cozart.
yeah. I was just Agent Lowry.
CYLK. Agent Lowry in Conspiracy Theory. He's in Hot Shots. He's in 16 Blocks and Eraser.
I was like, this
Oh.
city street basketball team or whatever they are is gonna play against an NBA to get a scout to look at him. I was like, I don't think scouts would want to sign someone who's already like 12 years older than half the team, who's
It's his
never
dream,
put
man.
it is his dream. So, and it's an Ernest movie, so you can suspend belief.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I was like, a lot of decisions that people make in this movie just like, wow, okay, people. But once again, they have Ernest blatantly cheating, and that did not bode well for me. So I was a little upset about that, having to watch that a second time in a row. I was like, what the fuck is happening to these Ernest movies? Like, the heart is gone, the wholesomeness is gone. But then, of course, the ending of Slam Dunk kind of like, he literally throws the shoes away, makes the good decision. And I was like, okay, thank God. Thank God. I was really hopeful that that was going to be like the lead into the rest. Because I was kind of bummed, dude. Watching Goes to School and Slam Dunk, I was a little bummed. I was a little bummed out.
Yeah. And what about Goes to Africa? That's one you've seen before, right?
No, I had never seen it.
Oh, I thought that was one that you had seen.
No, I never saw that one. I was not feeling this movie like from the get-go, and I ended up falling asleep during it, and just
Never putting it back on.
Yeah, I just decided like I can't. So I fell asleep and woke back up like with the last 20 minutes of the movie, and had that thought of like, how the hell did we end up here?
Yeah. I had that thought when I was watching pretty much all of his movies of if you missed anything, it goes left a lot and you end up in a random place doing a random thing.
Yeah. So I actually I slept through most of it. I'm not gonna lie, because of the previous two, I was like, I bet I didn't like this one at all, so I'm not going to rewatch it. So you'll have to tell me what you thought of it, because I feel like I don't have a valid opinion. Yeah,
that's fair. It's similar. I mean, I don't have strong opinions about it. I don't love it by any means. It's okay. It's interesting that there's a lot of like more romance, I think, in this one where there's a girl that he likes that she doesn't really give him the time of day because she really wants someone who's adventurous and who sweep her off her feet and take her on adventures and all of that stuff. And and so Ernest is not that guy. He's a normal dude who's just a schmo and living his life. But then of course, through happenstance, he kind of gets randomly put in a position where he has to do that. He gets mistaken for another person and she gets kidnapped because they think that she's his girlfriend and because they've been watching him and all this stuff. And so there's kind of like a mob angle kind of thing. And they both get sent to Africa basically. And so then he becomes an adventurer, even though he says he's not an adventurer, which is weird because I've seen Ernest Rides Again and he's done all of the adventurer things and had a whole conversation about being an adventurer then. So I guess he forgot that. But it's all right. He does a lot of interesting. Like he does all the same good things. He plays the old lady. He dresses up.
Okay.
He dresses up as like a servant who rubs dirt on his face and does like an African voice. So that might get you canceled these days, but it's pretty funny. One thing that you noticed though, or I noticed, is that Jim Varney is secretly jacked, and you kind of see it in Slam Dunk Ernest, but
Mhm.
you see it in this movie where he's pretty shredded for a lanky, dorky comedy guy, and I
Yeah.
don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's partly, cigarettes and stuff, but it definitely
Not
stood out. I
not
was
to
like,
say that smoking cigarettes is gonna get you jacked.
I mean, look, kids, if you want to get jacked, the key to doing it is smoking cigarettes. No, I'm just saying, like, he might have less body fat
It's
generally
like
if you smoke cigarettes.
the worst
Everybody I know
PSA
who
of
smokes
all
cigarettes is
time.
like, I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah, don't do cigarettes, kids. Oh, I did mean to say. So the reason you shouldn't do cigarettes is because you'll fucking die from it. Jim Varney
Yeah,
died
yeah,
from it at 50 years old, a super young age, and which knowing that when he goes to jail and they offer him a blindfold and a cigarette, he has a funny line about, "No, I'm afraid of the dark, and cigarettes will kill you." And I was like, "Oh, that's so sad,
You're
so
like,
dark, but
"Ooh,
so sad."
that line doesn't age well."
Yeah. But yeah, Africa is, I think, I mean, they're just on a downward trend, and I think that the
Yeah.
ratings on IMDb kind of reflect that. And I don't think that they're given the attention and care that the earlier movies got. I think that they start to be more just like pump out a movie with a known character, and I don't know the whole writing situation and what may have led to that or all of that stuff, but it definitely seems like that they just didn't get the care in the writing and the
Mhm.
story. And Jim Varney tries his hardest. He does a great job. He's certainly in character, but he just doesn't have the
Oh, yeah.
little quips, the little lines, the little things that make it special. He has all the facial expressions, but no actual like pieces of heart and pieces of
Mhm.
um, joy, I guess, in these
Yeah.
last couple movies, which is sad.
It was weird seeing that. You know, it was even weirder? An Ernest movie with terrorism and war, and
Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm watching
That's true.
Ernest in the army, and I'm like, "What happened? Like, is this a sign of the times when they were making these?" Like, I get that Saving Private Ryan had just come out, Thin Red Line had just come out, like,
Mhm.
late '90s was a war movie kinda pump out, you
Yeah,
know? But
yeah, post Desert Storm or mid Desert Storm.
right, but this was like, this is an earnest movie. Like, I
Yeah,
think even
this
Pauly Shore's in the army now probably had less terrorism in it than this one does. Like,
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's an odd choice. Even more odd than sending him to jail is sending Ernest into combat, and
yeah,
just because he wants to drive big trucks. That's an odd choice for sure.
wants to be an army guy. This one I felt knowing it was the final one. Um,
Mhm.
and you can kind of, I bet everyone knew that was going to be the last one, whether Jim Varney had passed away or not. I think in the army was going to be it. I thought this one was a little bit better than the previous ones. Like they had tried a little harder with this one.
Yeah.
I just felt that for a final Ernest film, what a weird choice. And I might
Mhm.
just be like saying this because I'm a sucker for good callbacks or good like, hey, let's just bring it all together. Um,
Yeah.
I kind of feel like a final Ernest movie should have been him, like maybe going back to camp or going back home to his hometown, or let's see him go revisit one of these other previous jobs that he's had. And
Yeah.
let's revisit a world with Ernest where people don't just shit on him. I was glad to see that he has
Mhm.
like a legitimate friend in this movie,
Mhm.
which I thought was cool, but I definitely found myself missing like the old cast members. I definitely miss
Mhm.
them. I was like, man, there's too much missing. And I get that they're trying a little harder. And this one isn't horrible. Like, yeah, there's some weird
Yeah.
decisions, but him with the rock mines is a great gag.
Mhm.
Him starting the movie off at the golf course where you're
Yeah.
like, well, clearly this is coming back, but then they really confirm it where the terrorist is like a golf fanatic. And you're like, okay, this is really coming back.
Yeah. It's really lucky on that one.
Yeah, but it still just felt off, man. I was bummed. I think the Ernest franchise kind of deserved better than those final 5 movies they got. Or maybe it
Yeah.
would have just been a better decision to end it with Scared Stupid and let Jim Varney go and do all these other projects, go and
Mhm.
probably become a had he not passed away at 50, he probably would have been another big voice for Pixar, or maybe we could have seen him do
Yeah.
more dramatic work. Who knows? But I
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
bummed that the franchise had to end on such a weird, like downward slope, or
Mhm.
not even really a slope to me. It's like a start slope,
Cliff.
just complete dead drop, and then it kind of like oh we'll try. Oh, too little, too late. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was yeah.
Yeah, it lacks all of the main things. It's like they didn't know or they forgot or other people took over,
Yeah.
and so you lost what made them work earlier on. He doesn't really interact with kids very much. There's that kid in it, but he doesn't it's not like a major point of the movie, and it's not the same as like the camp or the holidays or any of the other ones where he's like in it specifically with them. And I agree.
Mhm.
I think it would be better to take him back to maybe a simpler story or a simpler place. And I know they had ideas for a bunch of other options. So for these handful of last things to be like the choices they made and the situations they wanted to put him in, it just wasn't the right call, I think, for most of them.
Yeah, very very strange decision making in my opinion. Well, it sounds like yours too. Of just
Yeah.
yeah, they lost their muster. I mean, Jim Varney, you could tell is still trying. You can tell he's still like
Yeah.
dedicated to his craft. He's still going to do what he needs to do. It's
He's a
just like,
pro.
man, you're missing like you're good, but you're missing all the other pieces that make this whole thing cohesive and fun and wholesome, and
Hmm.
the silliness, like you're trying the silliness but it's just not landing. uh
Hmm.
I mean, the I was happy with the gag with that like sticky candy that he has, where he spits it into the general's face and then he like uses the jeep
Yeah.
to take it off, but it runs the general over. That part made me laugh, and I was like, that bit, that gag felt like an earnest gag. Like that felt good.
Hmm.
And he does have the line, I guess, callback where he tells his friend, like, well, I was a camp counselor one time, and it's like, ha, 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 can you go back?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, take me back there.
right. Yeah, the candy gag was funny. The pancake gag should have been great, but it's so
Mhm.
like uh uneven. No one can lift
Yeah.
these tank weighted pancakes, but he carries one in his back pocket, so his pants are also invulnerable, as are his teeth
Yeah.
when he takes a bite out of it
Eats it.
and
Yeah.
drinks motor oil, and which I had a grown up eye on that scene, Jake. And I kind of judged
Yeah.
myself for it. You know, he tells the kid like, "Oh, give me some syrup," and the kid grabs the motor oil sitting right next to the syrup. And instantly in my head, I
Mhm.
was like, "Who the hell stores motor oil right next to like your kitchen? And who the hell stores this weird tank, whatever it was, next to
Yeah.
like?" So I had a grown up brain on that scene, but I was like, yeah, I just they lost that appeal, and that's such a
Yeah.
shame. I was really bummed that the final five. I wasn't expecting them to be as enjoyable, but I
Mhm.
had that little bit of hope of like just at least make me like giggle, like have something, have
Yeah.
a semblance of what I just really really loved. But luckily, because they suck, my my enjoyment of those previous four was not
Yeah.
altered. I'm like, no, those
Yeah.
four, those are the treasure. And I was like reading some stuff online, just seeing like anyone else and how they felt with Ernest, and everyone kind of shared the same thing. I was like, okay, so this is a collective
Mhm.
mentality, I guess. Uh, but thank God shitty films haven't rattled us to lose our fanship with like those old ones. And those old
Right.
ones are classics for us 90s kids. I mean, they're so dumb, but that's what makes them so awesome.
Yeah, but there's obviously much more to them than just being dumb because they try to do the same dumb things in the later films, and there's just something missing. And
And
I
there's,
think
yeah.
that something missing in the first ones is the whole heart of the character, the wholesomeness of the character, and kind of his motivation with helping kids and connecting with kids
Yeah.
and all of that stuff. That helps a lot.
Yeah. In those previous movies, he's always seems to be like kind of leading this life of just trying to help someone improve theirs, and he's obviously wanting to improve his own, but he's always kind of like, oh yeah, I can probably help you fix that, or of course I can do this for you. He's always there
Mhm.
for people. And in those later ones, there's a lot of like, I feel kind of selfish decisions and kind of just not earnesty decision making.
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you too, it really, really, really upset me that they just turned him into like a legitimate idiot. I felt that was such a
Mhm.
disservice to the character, and that really bothered me. It was like, man, the hell, guys! Like you had this
Yeah.
gem and you fucked it up.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
But I still love this. It was such a. I was expecting definite full on nostalgia, but I think I got something a little bit better than the nostalgia. It just kind of
Mhm.
like this was just pure joy for me, and it was such a like innocent joy.
Yeah.
I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it really took me back, to being a kid, which is a really fun part, and in a way that I
Yeah.
hadn't done in a long time, and in a way that I anticipate doing for the next episode as well, which is also about movies that we haven't watched for a long time,
Yeah.
watched a shitload as kids, and aren't quite sure if they hold up or if we're just idiots back then.
Yeah. Oh man. I've watched a couple so far. I'm
Yeah.
totally gonna brag. I was not just an idiot back then. These movies fucking rock.
Good. That's
um,
exciting.
but yeah, I was like, I just the Ernest franchise to me, I was like, man, this is such a. I feel like they're kind of a time capsule in movies for like our generation's
Mhm.
childhood, and I think that might
Totally.
be why I think they're still so special. And rewatching this, at least those four that I remember watching as a kid, even though I didn't remember details
Mhm.
about them, but it really felt like, holy crap, I'm watching like an actual like this kind of seemed to hold on to a moment of time for me where it was like life was pretty fun right here. You really enjoyed stuff, and that was like
Yeah.
that was real nice. So I think they hold up. I think they're super fun, and
Definitely.
and I know you and I say this kind of stuff a lot, but I think we're always going to worth revisiting. Like I totally
Mhm.
want my daughter to watch those first four. I think she would just love them. She loves silly, like
Oh, yeah.
slapstick, stupid style humor like that. She loves it. And I think, like, if you have kids, if you're our ages and you got kids, I mean, watch those early movies. It's Christmas time. Watch Ernest Saves
Mhm.
Christmas. You don't have to watch them in order. They're like
No.
cereals. They don't they don't connect. Um,
Yeah.
they're just so fun. They're so wholesome. Like that was what great family movies. At least those first four.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
even
There
if our
yeah, there
moms
really
hated
isn't
them.
anything bad in them.
No, they're
Yeah. That's what I would tell my mom. "Mom, there's not really anything bad in it."
right. And then my mom at least would always be like, "But they're so dumb." Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, indeed. What this was a absolute joy. I loved revisiting these. I'm so glad we did this. I've been so thrilled with like the majority of our episodes this whole year, dude. We've had some great episodes this year.
Yeah,
Even with
really have.
that
I've
scarring one that we did a while back.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that it's gotten so much better over the last couple of years, and every year and every episode, really, I'm like, that one was great. That one was really fun. It might be my favorite. And so
Yeah.
I hope that continues. I think we have
I think
a
it will.
lot of really interesting and fun things on deck for next year as
Yeah.
well. So it's already shaping up to be great.
Well, we alluded to it just a second ago. I'm stoked for the next one too. We're gonna be continuing our wholesome nostalgia trip, if you will, just kind of embracing that inner child. Uh childhood movies. Man, I've got some weird childhood movies that I'm like, I can't wait to
Yeah.
rewatch and be like, people are gonna be, what?
I have at least one that I really need to know if anybody else has ever seen it or if it was just me, because I have not yet found anybody else who's seen it. So I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, I think I have one on mine that might even challenge you on if you've seen it,
Okay.
and it stars someone that you know very, very well. So I'm curious. I'm curious about that one.
Ooh.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
but this has been like I feel we've done some pretty hard hitting episodes. We've had some pretty deep conversations, especially
Yeah.
recently.
Mhm.
I feel like completing this year off, which is fucking crazy to think that this is it. Like,
Oh yeah, big time. That's crazy.
like what? Um, I haven't even started trying to draft for the next draft, man. Fuck, we gotta
I know. I honestly haven't either. I was like, oh shit.
we're gonna
Last
start
time I was like
planning.
prepared in October, but
You
I have
had
not prepared at all.
fucking tables made. You're a little crazy with it.
Yes.
Um, but I
Yeah.
think this is
Look
such a
how well
cool
it's
way for
working
you
out.
and I to finish this year with this very. I think these might be some of the most wholesome kind of or revisiting kind of thing. So I can't wait to talk about our
Totally.
childhood movies. I'm very excited to hear yours because I know your childhood movies are pretty different from mine. So we're gonna have just this like
All over the
all
place.
over the
Yeah.
place kind of episode. I'm stoked, but
Yeah. That will be very fun. So yeah, tune in for that. Go and check out Instagram or moviebuzz.com. Get in the giveaway.
yeah,
We want you to earn some free movies. That'll be fun too. And yeah,
yeah. I think
we're
that's
good.
it. I think that's it. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you subscribe. Keep spreading the word to all of our new followers, listeners. Welcome. Join the conversation. Let
And
us
we're happy
know,
we're
like,
here.
if you grew up watching Ernest, if you're the younger generation and have no clue who we are talking about, go find them. Those early ones,
Yeah.
just stick with the first four, guys. I'm telling you, just stick with those first four. But welcome,
Yeah.
happy you're
And
here.
this time of year is perfect for Christmas.
Yes.
Christmas needs Ernest to save it, and I'm so glad that he does.
Yes. So thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.